Have you ever noticed how serious we can get about faith? That's a ridiculous question. Of course you have. Like everything suddenly needs to be quieter, heavier, more intense. Somewhere along the way, it starts to feel like joy doesn't quite fit. But what if we've misunderstood something really, really important? What's up, my EFF? Let me tell you how it is. You've just stumbled upon God Jots, a series about the nature of love, compassion, joy, and the real-life connection between human beings. I'm Bowen, Nashville, Tennessee rock pop artist, author, husband, father, complete dork, and aspiring compassionist. Sit back, relax, and be prepared to laugh, cry, maybe even take up meteorology for some reason. Whenever I start getting stressed, taking things or myself way too seriously, or drifting into that subtle, I'm not judging, I'm just noticing mode, a small voice wanders into my brain uninvited. Hey, Ender, don't forget, Christ is a party. If that sentence immediately makes you uncomfortable, tense, or worried that I'm about to get struck by lightning mid-paragraph, congratulations! You are exactly who I'm talking to. Somewhere along the way, many of us learned to talk about Jesus in hushed tones, as if joy were a liability and laughter a lack of reverence. We lower our voices, we furrow our brows, we speak about faith like it's a very serious business meeting with God where smiling might get us escorted out. And yet, when you read the stories, when you actually sit with them, Jesus keeps showing up at dinner tables, parties, weddings, and places where people are very clearly enjoying themselves. I'm convinced this is why there were no DMVs in antiquity. If joy in Christ is supposed to be such a big deal, why do we so often sound like we're announcing bad news? I don't mean this sarcastically. Oh, okay, maybe I do a little bit. But sometimes when people bring up Jesus, it feels like they're delivering a weather report for a permanent spiritual drizzle. And that's strange, considering the whole point of the story is that death didn't get the final word, resurrection did, which makes the persistent gloom confusing. I'm sure you can sense some of the tension here. Reverence is good. Deep respect matters. But when reverence turns into constant solemnity, something gets lost. We start confusing seriousness with holiness, as if true joy in Christ is somehow immature or distracting. We treat faith like it must always be heavy to be meaningful. But that posture creates a problem, not just internally, but outwardly. When people look in from the outside, they don't see the joy of knowing Christ. They see tired faces, clenched jaws, and a whole lot of energy spent pointing out what's wrong with everyone else. We think we're being faithful. They hear us being miserable. And listen, life is hard. I'm not denying that. Pain is real. Struggle is real. Sin is real. I have sin. Okay, cool. Let's dance. Not because sin doesn't matter, but because grace does. Because forgiveness happened. Because pretending we're perpetually somber doesn't make us more holy. It just makes us less human. I think this is where we're missing something essential. Finding your joy again in Christ, it isn't about ignoring suffering. It's about remembering that suffering isn't the end of the story. Joy doesn't deny the cross. It lives on the other side of it. And if resurrection is real, then our default posture probably shouldn't be spiritual despair. I am so excited to tell you about my very first God Jots book, Forgiveness and Healing: How to Seek, Offer, and Understand the Power of Forgiveness. What is forgiveness? What is the power of forgiveness? And how can you use it to set yourself free from the chains of that bondage? Learn how to forgive, learn how to apologize, and read real stories from real people that'll help you get through it. Plus, hey, on top of that, a whole lot of my weirdness, I suppose. So if you're willing to take a chance on that, check it out. It's available now, including signed copies, at forgivenessbook.godjots.com. Go check it out. Why are we all moping around like somebody died? I mean, really, why are we all moping around like somebody died? Sure, he did. but he also didn't. And that second part feels pretty important, don't you think? From the outside, this is one of the strangest things about Christianity. We claim to believe the most hopeful, absurd, anything is possible story imaginable. A man dies, comes back to life, and changes everything. And we talk about it like it's a burden, like it's bad news we have to responsibly manage. I mean, isn't this supposed to be the good news? If I didn't already believe this story, hey, I'd be skeptical too. Because in my experience, Christians don't always look like people who've been set free. They look like people who've been assigned more rules. And maybe that's the disconnect. Joyful Christianity, it doesn't deny sin or seriousness. It refuses to pretend that guilt is the goal. The goal was always restoration, relationship, rejoicing, a seat at the table. Jesus didn't invite people into his life with lectures first. He invited them to meals, to stories, to laughter, to follow him, not into constant dread, but into a way of living that somehow made room for joy in the Lord, even in the middle of chaos. Just to be clear, laughing with Jesus is not the same as laughing at him. Anyone who's ever had a deep, long-term friendship knows the difference. What do you do with your closest friends? You tease them. You joke. You poke fun. You give them a hard time. It's not disrespect. It's intimacy. So when someone tells me, you shouldn't joke about Jesus, I understand the impulse. I respect the concern. But I also wonder what kind of relationship they think Jesus wants with us. Do we really believe he's that fragile? That easily offended? This is Jesus brings joy, Jesus. This is incarnation, resurrection, defeated death, Jesus. This is God is with us. If Jesus is supposed to be your best friend, why wouldn't there be laughter? That kind of playfulness doesn't cheapen faith. It humanizes it. It makes it accessible. It makes it real. Finding joy in Christ isn't about forcing happiness. It's about allowing yourself to actually enjoy the relationship you claim to have. To stop performing seriousness and start practicing gratitude. It's also, admittedly, an excuse for me to get away with being obnoxious sometimes. Okay, not sometimes, most times. This is also how faith becomes attractive again. Not through arguments or corrections, but through visibly celebrating faith. Through a life that says, yes, I know the world is broken, and I also know hope is real. One of my favorite images for faith is a dinner table. Everyone's there. People are talking over each other. Someone's laughing too loud. Someone else brought a dish that didn't quite turn out right, but we're eating it anyway because that's what love does. And Jesus is there. He's not policing behavior, but sharing life. That's what the joy of living a Christ-centered life looks like. It's not perfection. It's participation. Not posturing. Presence. And yes, that means inviting your neighbor. It means opening space. It means laughing at yourself, sometimes a lot. It means poking at your own blind spots before you ever poke at someone else's. Because there's a massive difference between playful self-awareness and righteous nitpicking. And only one of those feels like Christ. How to have joy in Christ might be less about adding something new and more about removing the unnecessary heaviness we've piled up on top of the gospel. Joy was never meant to be a side effect. It was part of the invitation. All right, now it's your turn. When people hear you talk about Jesus, do they hear joy in Christ or obligation? Do they see celebration or critique? Do they feel invited or evaluated? What would it look like for you to laugh more freely in your faith? To poke fun at yourself? To stop pretending that seriousness is the same thing as holiness? To remember that this story ends with life, not loss? If Christ really is a party, what would it look like for you to show up like you believe it? What would change if you let yourself enjoy the invitation instead of analyzing it? Because life is hard enough already. And if the story we believe is true, if resurrection really happened, then there is so much joy to be had. So pull up a chair, stop moping, and for the love of all that is holy and resurrected, let's dance. If you like this episode and want to be notified when new ones are uploaded, make sure you don't leave without hitting that subscribe button. Or subscribe to God Jots on your favorite podcast streaming service. You can also check out more God Jots, as well as subscribe to the Monday Joy Bomb newsletter for ebooks, updates, and exclusive content at godjots.com. Until next time, be honest with yourself. Be truthful with others. Give people the opportunity to surprise you. And remember that it's impossible to have absolutely nothing in common with another human being. Be a little light in the world. I'm sure I'll see you soon.